Hi you guys, welcome back to another episode of Life with Z. Today's episode is all about the first day of spring and our Nowruz celebration. The spring equinox is this week, and in the Persian culture we celebrate this as the first day of the new year, the start of spring, so there's lots to celebrate, and I wanted to show you some of the ways we celebrate in my family. We have lots of fun things here that I'm excited to take you through and tell you all about, whether it's my own family's traditions or Persian culture. There's lots that I'm excited to share, so let's get started. So like I mentioned, Nowruz is the start of spring. It's the spring equinox, and it happens on a specific date and time each year. This year, it just so happens to fall on March 20th at 4 a.m. Central Time. And some ways to celebrate typically include gathering together as a family, and if the specific time of the spring equinox happens to be at a time you can all get together, then you celebrate with family, have good food, and there's some time-specific traditions as well that I'll explain. But really, this all just has to do with the rotation of the earth, the start of spring, longer days ahead, and in the Persian culture, this is truly the start of the new year. So some of the things you do to start off the new year, of course, like in American culture, there's spring cleaning, so making sure your space is nice and ready for the season ahead. And then we set up our haftseen, which I'll walk you through the pieces of today, but essentially there's 7 S's that signify new beginnings, start of spring, and really pull together that beautiful scene that you want to set in your home. So we have most of those pulled together, and then another tradition is to make sure that you have new clothes for the new year ahead, a new outfit from head to toe, something that we always did growing up, and we'll be sure to do again this year as well. And then of course, beyond that, there's always delicious food and desserts. So I'll show you one of my family's favorites, our nut mix that we make and share with friends and family every year. So we'll be making our own batch of that as well today. But starting in those 7 S's that we'll put together to build our haftseen, the first one is our sabzet, or our lentils. And this is a tradition that my dad and I have each year. We grow our lentils. This is about a week and a half in, but essentially you soak just traditional lentils that you'd find at the grocery store in water for a few days, and lentils will actually sprout into these little shoots. So after soaking them in water, we put them in a pie dish with a little lip, and then you cover them with a damp paper towel until you get little sprouts after a few days. And those sprouts will turn into these little shoots if you continue to keep the lentils in the sunlight. And then after a couple weeks, you'll end up with lentil sprouts this tall or a little taller, and we tie them with a thick red ribbon and put them on our haftseen, and this represents rebirth and growth in the new year. So my dad and I always like to do a lentil growing competition to see whose can be taller. I have had quite a few years of doing really well and a few years where I struggled as well. It all just depends on my work travel that year and how attentive I can be. But Greg has gotten really good about chasing the light, as they say, and moving the lentils around the house when I'm not home to keep them growing. So this year they're looking pretty great. Another one of the S's is sear, or garlic. So we've got our little garlic, and typically for the haftseen displays, all of your items will be in nice dishes on display. So the garlic represents protection and good health, so bringing that into your new year. The next S is seeb, and that is apple. The apple represents beauty and well-being, another thing of course we want to bring into our new year. And then you have sumac, and sumac represents sunrise, or lightness over darkness. Of course, going into spring with having longer days and finally a brighter, sunnier season, we're really excited to bring this into our new year. Next, we have serka, vinegar, which symbolizes patience and wisdom, which of course we can never have enough of, and another great thing to bring into our new year. And then the last 2 S's I don't have yet, waiting on those to arrive. We'll have senjed, which is dried oleander fruit, and this symbolizes love and wisdom. And then lastly, samanu, which is another wheat germ product that symbolizes strength and prosperity. So So those are the 7 S's that we'll have set up on our haftseen. But beyond that, there's quite a few other pieces that we add just to symbolize life, the new year, and all that we have to look forward to. One of my favorites is hyacinth. This symbolizes spring, and you often find this, of course, in American culture as well. The fragrant smell just reminds me of Nowruz. We always had this in my house growing up in springtime, and the purple color specifically is what my family always uses. So we'll add that to our haftseen table as well. Then we always add some coins just to symbolize what we wish for in the new year with wealth and prosperity. We also have some live goldfish over here. These little guys. Gonna put them in a bigger bowl with some fresh water. They're just still acclimating from the pet store. But the goldfish symbolize life and movement. And a fun thing about the goldfish is at that specific time where the earth rotates, so this year at 4:01 a.m. Central Time on March 20th, the fish who are super sensitive, they should be able to sense that shift in the earth. And if you happen to be awake, you should be able to see them jump in the water. So that's just a fun little activity for the Nowruz holiday. My sister and I used to carefully watch our fish to see if they would jump at that rotation of the earth. A few other things that we'll definitely add to our haftseen. We always have a mirror for self-reflection and clarity, candles representing light and happiness, and then of course the Quran for spiritual reflection. And then one other thing that we always add are painted eggs to symbolize fertility and wishing that for the new year. And my family always dyed the eggs with onion skins, so I'll show you what we have and we can make these together. But essentially you take eggs and wrap them in red onion skin, and then we tie them in thread and boil the eggs with this skin on them, and it'll dye the eggs a really rich red-brown color. But we knock the eggs together, and whoever's cracks last is the winner, and they will have better luck and prosperity in the new year. And then lastly, I know I mentioned my family does a nut mix as our dessert every year, so I wanted to show you some of the ingredients that we add to ours. It's kind of been a family tradition for everyone to add their favorite items, so I'm trying to recreate that for our home this year. So of course you have to start first with a giant bowl. So this will be our bowl that we're gonna mix in this year. And then we have lots of nuts and seeds and candies that we mix in. So I try to get something to represent each of my family's favorite items, just as a little way of thinking of them. So yogurt covered raisins were my sister's favorite growing up when we would make our own Nowruz nut mix. So we'll be adding that, thinking of her. Dark chocolate covered almonds are my husband's favorite, so we'll be adding those for him. Roasted pumpkin seeds, just because they're delicious. Roasted salted cashews. Walnuts, my dad's favorite, so we'll be adding those for him. Some jumbo mixed raisins, particularly these yellow ones, are crucial for this nut mix. Pumpkin seeds, these are not the best ones, but my mom loves pumpkin seeds like this in the shell, so we'll be adding these, thinking of her. My favorite, we also add some candy into this nut mix, so of course you know the candy is my favorite part, so we'll be adding Jelly Belly jelly beans for me, and then we'll add some pistachios. And lastly, for a spring touch, some pastel colored M&Ms. So we'll be mixing all of these delicious nuts and candies together in this big bowl, and then putting that out for our Nowruz celebration and sharing this with friends and family as a way of celebrating. And then together today we'll also dye those eggs, get them wrapped up in their onion skins and boiling in water. So let's get started. Now we'll prepare our eggs to dye them, and if you're wondering how I sourced so many red onion skins, I went to my local grocery store and bought a few red onions, but then while bagging those up, I made sure to grab any of the spare loose skins that were in the bin already, just to make sure I could have enough to wrap my eggs. So that's one of my little tricks if you don't want to buy a dozen red onions, to have enough skin to dye your eggs. And then we'll peel off the layers and wrap them around the eggs with some thread. And you really want to make sure the onion skin is wrapped tight to the egg. That's how you're going to get the best color when you go to boil your eggs. You really want to make sure that all the color from that onion skin is touching the egg directly, and that boiling water will help with the color transfer. Now that we've got all of our eggs wrapped up, we'll get them over into the boiling water, and I let them boil for about 10 minutes. And then another trick to really make sure you get that good color on them is to let them sit in the water after they've boiled. So you turn off the heat and then let those eggs really soak in the pigmented water. That's what gives them their rich color. And typically we don't eat these eggs anyway. They're really more just for decoration, for your haftseen. So I don't worry about them sitting out too much. So now that these have soaked for a while, we will unwrap them so you can see their beautiful color. And another trick I have when dyeing eggs, whether it's for Nowruz or for Easter, is to always make a couple extra just in case they crack. And that's what happened this time. We really wanted 4, and 2 of our 6 ended up cracking in the process. So we got our 4, they turned out great, and I'm really excited to add them to my Nowruz haftseen table. Alright you guys, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about this holiday and how me and my family celebrate. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next week for a brand new video. Bye!